triggering change one heartbeat at a time. Battle for Freedom. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunay from Battle for Freedom on Mojo5 Radio, and I appreciate every last one of you as we get into another broadcast of Battle for Freedom on Mojo5 Radio, where we get a chance to just say anything that comes to mind that may get you triggered, may move you to change your disposition or your outlook of how you saw things before today, before this conversation. My hope is that it can help you. Another way I want to help you is if you have an affinity for coffee, for the thing called Java, whatever a lot of people love, may I recommend to you American Pride Roasters coffee, the official coffee of Mojo5 Radio. But also one of the cool things about it is American Pride Roasters coffee is traditional. It's historically great coffee. Historically great coffee. There's a great story of history that goes with every blend that you get. You can't go wrong getting American Pride Roasters coffee. If you want to interact, you can go to facebook.com/Battle for Freedom. Leave your comment there, and I'd be happy to hear what you have to say, and we go from there. Now, one of the things that's really interesting. The other one I want to get on you is the idea of New Life Holistic. A lot of people are stressed out. A lot of people suffered some crazy things, kind of like, just PTSD, anxiety, and so much more. And New Life Holistic is one of those avenues I want you to consider. And the reason why I say this is because of the fact that there are a lot of people who are stressed out, people who just don't know what to do in life, and they need some help. They need some restoration in their lives to recover them from the worst case scenarios possible. And biofeedback therapy by New Life Holistic, it makes a difference. It helps you recover. It helps you re-establish yourself in ways that you never imagined. I want you to contact Anthony Malchiotti of New Life Holistic. Share out with him. Let him know that Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you, so that you can not be threatened by a lot of the ailments that are paralyzing too many people. Many people right now who don't want to go off and get the medical help that they need to recover from the situation that they're in right now. May I ask, and may I beg you that you look into New Life Holistic, recover from the stresses, the pains, the pressures that have been ailing you for far too long. And I'm praying in the midst of this, you will become a better man, a better woman, in result of this, in light of this situation. So today I want to talk to you about something very interesting. It's reestablishing communications on the correct frequency. Now, I could have said on the right frequency, but I think on the correct frequency is a lot better statement to use in light of this. I say this because of the fact that I think most of the times we get so wrapped into our side of the thing. And honestly, many of you would probably argue, well, isn't that what you're doing, Watson? Isn't that what you're doing when you turn around and you try and speak from your perspective and you try and get everyone to wake up to your point of view? Well, I guess you could probably say that. That's probably true. But let's have a discussion. Let's get on the correct frequency. And I think this is back to something I've said before. Thanks for joining, Lisa. Something I said before in reference to the idea of the language is being controlled. The kind of conversation that we have with people when we're trying to make sense of all the craziness that's going on. Do we turn around and allow them to control the conversation and then be tied up into a box of knots and everything like that because of the fact that we chose not to be the ones to make certain that the terms were defined correctly and we weren't moved around, tossed to and fro, and unable to stand our ground, or even stand comfortable or sit comfortably in the midst of a conversation? I think that this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have faced in light of so much in our lives, and I'm praying that as a result of this, we can change this. So let's get into some of the stories here. I saw one here. Let me just start off with this one here because of the fact that This was clearly exactly where people were going with respect. This is where people were going with respect to this whole Trump debacle. This whole Trump nonsense has been happening in Capitol Hill for more than 2-3 weeks now, as people keep thinking, oh, we're going to get Trump. We're going to get Trump. This is it. He's going down. I'm just going to make this the main view for a second here so you can see this. This is from The Guardian that's cited by MSN. Trump 2024 run could upend midterms and deflect the risk of prosecution. A Trump 2024 run can upend the it could upend the midterms and deflect the risk of prosecution. Now, as I bring up this article, there's a lot that I want to share with you because it's pretty sad. It's pretty pathetic as you look at the reasons why people are arguing for the right to not they want to prosecute him and they don't want him running again. So what they do is they manufacture this foolishness that people are looking at, and people are distracted and believing that they actually have something real or substantial here to hold Trump and keep him from being running for office. So let's look at this one here. This article, as I'm going here, and I see that Linda's joined. Thank you for being part of the program too. I really appreciate you, Linda. Let's read some of this article here. Speculation is swirling in the U.S. media that Trump is considering announcing a 2024 presidential run as early as this summer. And in face of an ever more damaging revelations from a congressional investigation of his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, irrespective of his chances of winning the second term, another presidential campaign under consideration, as reported by the New York Times, CBS, and quote-unquote other U.S. outlets, could give the former president a multi-year shield to deflect the attention of prosecutors. Now, again, as you sit here and you read these things, you can definitely see that this is nothing about the truth. This is basically about, listen, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. There are things about him I just don't agree with. But I don't want him to run again. But what they're trying to do right now is just downright, it's downright apparent. And if you can't see it, of them childishly wasting tax dollars to get rid of it. And I'm going to tell you that the other side of it too is when you have we have Republicans announcing, now again, is this true that you hear in the news outlets that the Republicans in the House vow that they're going to do investigations into Biden and Hunter Biden and spend more time investigations. If that is the same language that they're using, and it is true that they said that, we've lost the battle. We've lost the battle. Why? Because of the fact that we're playing on their terms. And remember, never argue with a fool, because they will beat you down. They will bring you down to their level and beat you up with experience. And unfortunately, because of the fact that this is a tit for tat, I want to get you and I want to make you feel bad because I don't like you and I don't like your friends and you smell and blah, 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 you eat boogers. This is the mentality of what we're fighting. Hey, Curtis, thanks for joining and being part of the program. And unfortunately, because of the fact that we're so fixated on wanting to win this battle, win this argument, we're willing to compromise ourselves, compromise our focus and vision of what really needs to be done here. See, we have to be on the correct frequency and understand that when we decide that we're going to start playing their game, everything is distorted. Who was it? Trying to remember this story where that's exactly what happened. Is they got the person to change their game, and in the end, they wound up beating the person. Oh yeah, that's what it was. There's a thing called Remember Our Goal, and then there's The Perfect Race. There's a third installment of this movie. It's a Christian-based movie. It's really great, really appreciated. And the second movie is called the Perfect Race. And the idea is this one young lady has to run against this other runner who's very good, has the best time in conferences. And the way that she wins, or she tries to win, is she turns around and she gets the woman, the perfect runner, off of her game. So they play a psychological game with the best runner and get that person to turn around and get distracted. Yes, happy birthday to Jamie Christopher. Thank you, Linda, for sharing that. I wanted to share that as well too. One of our other hosts available to you on Mojo 50 Radio, her and Lep. You can't go wrong with Ain't You a Peach, Rock'em Sock'em, and so much more. Go to mojo50.com/schedule, however you pronounce it, and we'll go from there. But again, the whole idea, and the reason why I say this is because of the fact that there's so many different things, and I'm going to be playing a clip from Jordan Peterson shortly. I mean, before the end of the program, just so we can kind of talk about the whole idea of the language of the manipulators, and it's very, very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that we find ourselves wrapped up in there. So just when you know, Jamie, I do see that now in one area, but not the other. So you just keep making your statements, and we'll go from there. So this whole idea of, it's clear, you have to be blinder than a million bats not to see. This whole January 6th thing is not about stopping the insurrection and preventing it from happening again. It's solely about preventing Donald Trump from ever running again, and they're desperate to make certain that it doesn't happen. But I want to get into this whole idea where it's very interesting, because I want to see where the chips are going to fall on this, as people are getting tired of wokeness. A few weeks ago, I talked about the whole idea that even minorities are being hired into companies. They're trying to understand, why is it that you're pushing this message of equity or equality in your environment? Is it for hand waving purposes? Just so and it's not genuflecting. There's a word for it. Any other time I know what this word is here. Come on, people, help me here. What's the word here? When you're just doing it for likes and approvals and everything like that. Either way, we run into this problem where, and then like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you doing it because it's right? Or are you doing it because you're flexing your social muscle and want everybody to believe that you are somehow, some way really loving and caring and everything like that? Well, either way, we're not allowing them to define the language for us. But people get angry, people get frustrated, people get disgusted because of the fact that they know, you don't care. You're just saying this stuff just to make it seem like you care, but we know that you don't. Who is it? Here's one I thought was very interesting. Let's look into this one here. This is Macy Gray. Haven't seen much of her, but this is interesting. Check this out.
And I will say this, and everybody's going to hate me, but as a woman, just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman.
Right. Yeah, she said just because you change your parts, that doesn't make you a woman.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. She says, do you really believe that? Macy Gray basically says, just because of the fact that you change your parts, I'm sorry, that doesn't make you a woman. Now, this is very interesting because of the fact that, what does Macy Gray have to lose in terms of saying this? I mean, does she lose out? Does she get hurt as a result of saying what many would construe as hate speech? I mean, seriously, saying this, especially saying this after Jordan Peterson getting suspended from Twitter, which again, we're going to talk about that. Because again, this is all part of the idea of reestablishing communications and being on the correct frequency. Again, we tune ourselves to the right frequency for communication, that both of you can be on the same thing. I mean, as I try, played around a little bit with ham radio. You try and be on the right frequency, or many of you, you're not used to this, but on the older radios, when you were listening on AM or FM, and you weren't spoiled by Spotify and all these internet-based radio programs, you had this thing called like a jukebox or a boom box or even a Walkman, and you would sit there moving the dial left and right through the static, hoping that you catch that right frequency so you can hear your station clearly. Well, I think that there has to be that same level of back and forth with the different individuals. And sometimes there's so much static coming from their side that you just have to go to another station. You just got to walk away. And many of us, unfortunately, this is the reason why I believe that we're losing, is because we don't know how to walk away. We don't know how to walk away because we have to be right. We have to be the ones who are proven right, and it doesn't matter what anyone says. We're going to keep arguing with that person until we beat them into submission. That's exactly what we do all the time. We beat them into submission with our arguments. And sometimes you just got to let people be people and let them prove themselves what we already knew what was going on. But this is very interesting. Macy Gray, Morgan said that most public figures were too terrified to say what a woman is. The singer agreed, saying, I know. I would say a human being with boobs. Or how about you start there? And a vagina. But this is what Macy Gray is saying. Again, I don't know what her political affiliation is, but you can start seeing that people are getting tired of their language, of their frequencies being distorted by a lot of extra garbage, a lot of extra static. And a lot of people, they just avoid it because they don't want to deal with the static. They don't want to deal with the static. It's time for us to walk away. Does this mean be disrespectful? Does this mean be angry and all? No. It just means, listen, if I can't communicate with you, I'm not going to waste my time doing this. And I think this, again, it gets back to the idea of walking away. Because guess what? When we sit there trying to argue with someone and trying to force them onto our frequency, who's the one who gets frustrated more than anyone else? Us. Because they won't listen to quote-unquote common sense. Walk away. No, I gotta be right. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna convince them. I'm gonna change their bad ideology. I'm gonna make it happen. You hear that? I, and not relying on God to be the one who does it. But God's using me to change them. Yeah, enjoy your constipation, your consternation, and basically your internal damnation, because you're taking the role of God to try to change someone that is only in his purview to change. We share the truth and we walk away. Period. Here's another one I thought was really interesting, and this is with our old friend Betty Midler. Bette Midler. She's an interesting one here. Check this one out here. So Bette Midler is, they said, don't let them erase you. I'll bring this up here to make sure I get this right. Don't let them erase you. Bette Midler angers woke mob for blasting terms, birthing people and menstruators, and warns women we are being stripped of our rights over our bodies. Midler, 76, sparked anger on Monday by saying that women are being erased with the words such as birthing people. She was accused of being transphobic. Critics rushed to point out that it did not need to be a choice between supporting women or trans people. Martina Navratilova, one of the most openly gay sportswomen, backed Midler, however, joking, "Careful, Bet, you will be called transphobic too, or worse." Navratilova has sparked her own claims of transphobia by arguing that trans swimmer Leah Thomas should not be allowed to race against women. Before I continue, so there's a couple of things that Jamie says that I want to add on this. She says, I say you can't always get what you want, so stop trying to be something that you aren't. And then she says, I used to love her, now I can't watch or listen to her. I'm there with you too. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have a confession. Well, my mom died in December 31st, 1988, at 9 p.m. And it was a very emotional time for me because I think Beaches came out within 2 years, and it's a movie based on a mother dying of cancer, which my mom died. And I remember I couldn't wait for my friends. I worked at a restaurant, and I went and I think I saw Beaches 5 times in 2 weeks. I guess it was just a cathartic thing for me just to get out there and then just unleash all my emotions, crying on the screen. I think if there's any, I don't care for her and Hocus Pocus. For me, my Bette Midler movie, if anything, would be Beaches. So if that makes me a pansy, if that makes me a snowflake, whatever, I'll be a snowflake. But I don't know if I could ever. I don't know if I could ever watch the movie anymore because of her political distortions are so bad and her ideology is so bad that I think she's even ruined Beaches for me, that I can't even watch that anymore. But as we sit here, it's very sad, because the fact that even now, as she dons, she has been an advocate for abortion. She's been an advocate for the LGBT community. Even her, that they've, I gotta find that. Ron gave this to me. Maybe I'll read it another time. If I have time today, I'll do it today. But I got from Ron and Brad. They read a story from a person in the LGBT community who wrote a letter to the extremists in the community who are ruining it for their community. Very interesting letter that was going on here. But Bette Midler, she's under the ire of the people who don't care, and I think that this is a very interesting time between Macy Gray, Bette Midler, Martina Navratilova, amazing tennis player. And when I saw them come out against her, and I tell you, the saddest one for me is the way that they've attacked J.K. Rowling. That right there just shows you the level of visceral hatred that is, and extremism of all types. So let's move on to the next one. So which one is this one here? Oh yeah. So this is an interesting one too. Wait, I got this mixed up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I skipped one. So these people belong in jail. Fury erupts over video of a little girl being led by strutting drag queen with exposed breasts. Video has been posted of a drag queen walking hand in hand with a little girl. 16-second clip was filmed at a drag queen brunch in Wynwood, Miami. Now, this is one of the things that's very interesting on this, and I shared it yesterday, and Facebook was like, You're violating our community standards. I'm like, I'm just sharing the article, okay? And basically, it's really sad because the person, the guy who basically gets the boob job, has like these little stars covering his nipples, but you see a great part of the chest area, which is, what do you define? Again, wait till you hear more on the article as we talk about Jordan Peterson. But as we see here and we look at this thing, it's very sad, because honestly, any parent who brings them to this should really be imprisoned. They should be imprisoned. I can't believe that people who are taking their kids to these trans shows are not being labeled, losing their rights as parents for exposing them to soft porn, or whatever way that you want to call it, and nudity and indecency and everything like that. Every parent who is doing this there should be consequences to this action. Like I said, you have this one teacher here in Indianapolis, basically saying this is awakening them to all sides of what this stuff looks like, the truth. Oh my goodness. Curtis has said it best. Let's see if I got this one on here. And it doesn't show on here. But this is what he says, basically. The left will eat their own. So true. So true. The left will eat their own. And I think that's the reason why we all need to just chill out, back up, and let God do what he needs to in recognizing and waking people up. I'm your host, Watson Prunier, going to break. I'll talk to you on the flip side. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Romans 10:14 through 17. How then will they call on him who they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. I share these passages with you because of the fact that we know John 3:16. We probably barely hear Romans 10:14 through 17. And most doubtedly, we never hear 2 Corinthians 5:17. Life as a believer in Christ requires change. To make a decision for Christ, we recognize that there is something wrong in our lives and we need to do different. We need to be better, but we can't be better on our own strength. So we hear the gospel message, moved by the Spirit of God, and we respond. I ask you now, if you've heard the message, please respond and live for his glory. Triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Battle for freedom. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo Fiber Radio. I appreciate every last one of you as we continue to just talk about this whole idea of reestablishing communications on the correct frequency. Not on the right frequency, not on the left frequency, on the correct frequency. Zero in and make certain that we're all on the same page as we're discussing these topics. You know, it's interesting going to the break, just talking about the whole idea of, more and more people getting tired of the ignorance that's happening. The children exposing their kids to, no pun intended, to these situations where it's a lifestyle choice for the individuals, the adults who are going to partake in this. But, the parents who sent them there are unfortunately allowing their kids to be groomed. And now here's the reason why I want us to be very careful that we don't censor them. See, right now, politically correct speech is doing one of two things. This whole idea of being politically correct is preventing the people, the extremists, from sharing their opinion. So this idea of trying to punish people for saying the N word or saying the R word or saying, saying the V word, or even the E word for, the EI word for election integrity, saying those different things. What happens is they've stifled speech and they've put everybody in their proverbial closets. So that means that in the midst of dealing with the unfortunate circumstance of censorship and basically media bias, many of us are hiding in our proverbial closets for our political affiliations, our preferences via jabs, and our understanding, our perception, or our reality, our facts about the 2020 election, and so much more. And so as they sit here spending a whole month wanting people to be proud about who they are, what they've done is they've ushered a wide variety of people back into the closets that we're all supposed to be free and no longer anchored to. And what happens is that's what politically correct speech does. And I know many of us, we don't like to see these things. It's very disturbing watching parents push their kids and allow them to be exposed to all this. But you have to understand this. Some of those people who are doing this, who feel free to do this, we need to know who they are. See, because right now people are feeling very comfortable. The Democrats, they feel very comfortable. They're not hiding stuff in the hearing. Last week, I missed it on the Daily Mojo, how they played, how the person said, liberal world order. They have to be comfortable that they're no longer hiding it. The moment that we continue to attack them for the words that they say, then they continue to finally craft or finally knit their words in a different way. So that leaves us in a quandary trying to understand, are you for me, or are you for my purposes? Are you for the truth, or are you part of the group who basically are twisting reality? Yes, Curtis, they want acceptance. So Curtis asked this question, and let's deal with that. He says, why do they need my acceptance so badly? All of us need acceptance to some level. All of us need acceptance to some level. We want to be accepted. We feel the need for it. And unfortunately, it's really sad. And it's really unfortunate. You know, it's interesting because Jamie Christopher was saying, I've been in a Facebook jail a lot this past year. There's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Because it's to instigate tension, frustrations, hostility. That, you know, being put in this jail, it will make you more and more angry, because the goal is to lead you and lead us to share posts that can be misconstrued or even used against us. So if anything happens or we're framed for something, they can go back and look at everything that we posted in the past and say, you see what he said? You see what he said? You see what they did? This is everything that they said for the longest time. And we've got all the proof here. And we got all the proof here. Let people be free to say whatever they want, because in the end, it's not us they have to convince that they're on their side. It's the people that they've been deluding. You don't believe me? Take a look at this, and this one is really powerful. This next one here. What I'm about to play for you right now. This is Ilhan Omar at a conference, and she's being booed by all the people there. Why? Get the F out of here. Squad member Ilhan Omar is booed by 10,000 strong Somali Music Festival crowd in her own district. Days after she suggested that Minnesota is worse than a refugee camp. She struggled to speak over the crowd booing at her at the concert on Saturday. She could hear people telling her, Congresswoman, to get the bleep out of here. See, this is the reason why I'm telling you that we have to be quiet and give them the platform to say and do whatever they want. Because when they get comfortable in saying what they want, when they get comfortable in saying the most asinine things, and we don't use it, we don't have to use it against them. Their own words will eat them. Like Curtis said earlier, the left is eating their own. The left is eating their own. And yes, they can't handle the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to be reminded of how bad their circumstances are. But I'm telling you, the reason why this is happening right now is because of the fact that they feel so comfortable in saying and doing whatever they want, and it's not going to catch up to them. And I think it's best for us to step back and give them enough room to hurt themselves. Now, do we want them to fall? No. Everything is happening according to God's economy. But let's be careful here too, is because as we're sitting here hoping that they're going to fall, God's basically saying, "You too busy setting traps for yourself, or you too busy eagerly expecting other people to fall." And He's like, "I'm about to show you in your own life how you're about to fall yourself." See, because if we're so in tuned and basically frequencing ourselves to wait if we're too busy waiting for Biden to fall, we're just as bad as the January 6th committee. If we're so determined to see another gaffe from Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and the left and everything like that, we're just as bad as the January 6th commission, quote unquote. Because of the fact that we've fixated ourselves on seeing the downfall of other people rather than putting energy into building people up. Well, all they do is tear us down, but God's word says don't repay evil for evil. You don't want to be told that. Let's get into Jordan Peterson.
Hello, everyone. A few days ago, I penned an irritated tweet in response to one of the latest happenings on the increasingly heated culture war front. In response to the decision of an actor named Ellen Elliott Page. I am employing this awkward and impossible naming style because it is now apparently mandatory, and am probably doing it wrong nonetheless. And wrong is the whole point of what is being made mandatory. I'm trying to make a point. I've essentially been banned from Twitter as a consequence. I say banned, although technically I have been suspended.
And this is where we start getting into the conversation. You know, we know exactly what's happening here, right? And we spend a lot of energy trying to help people understand, well, this is what's going on. This is what. Listen, even in the tragedy in Chicago that took place, it's very interesting. They've gone out of their way to paint this Robert Crimo guy, 22 years old, as a Trump supporter. Oh, because they found a picture of him wearing a Where's Waldo thing in front of a Trump. Who knows if he wasn't sitting there spoofing and spamming the place? We don't know, but it's amazing how they have all these things. They're trying to, again, the convenience of the timing of this, especially given the fact that there was a mass shooting, there was a massacre in Copenhagen, Denmark. There was a mass shooting in Copenhagen, Denmark, where they say this doesn't happen. Copenhagen, Denmark, where you have some of the strictest gun laws in the world, and you still had a mass shooting. You see how sleight of hand, anything to basically pull the direction away from, because again, they're going to have this conversation. It only happens in America. And now you say you have all the major media outlets. All the major media outlets. We know this is a Trump supporter and he had a fascination with guns, and yeah. It wasn't a Trump supporter in Denmark, Copenhagen, who did the shooting. At least 3 people were killed. But that's not on front page news. This other individual, and the mother was a victim of a Mormon victim of abuse. You see how they go in out of their way and start pushing ideologies to signify that this lens. I mean, because if anyone should be offended by this, I would think that Mitt Romney would be offended by Daily Mail using Mormon domestic abuse suspect. Because wouldn't this be attacking your faith? Yours? I can't remember if Senator Mike Lee is a Mormon or not, but there's a wide variety who are. And here it is again, this is an attack against you, right? When they paint you out as either Trump supporters, again, controlling the language. And what we do, and I'm not going to lie to you, we do the same exact thing, because here's another one. Anti-abortion. It's not anti-abortion. We're not anti-abortion. We're pro-life. And as long as we continue to allow ourselves to be done that way, we suspended our rights to having a clear correction. We've been banned from public discourse because we've accepted their terms of how they define us rather than being defined by the truth of what it is. This is not wordplay. It's about not allowing the other side to give us all the negative terms, and we fight against those negative terms. Basically, continue to present yourself as being pro-life, and any person who's in the movement for being pro-life, who accepts the term of being pro-abortion, or not pro-abortion, but anti-abortion. Because when they say anti-abortion, a lot of people are disillusioned into what abortion is, and they don't clearly understand that it is not medical services or reproductive care. It is an illusion of all these other different functions and features in clinics and hospitals, and that supposedly abortion is just a minuscule part of it. And what we need to do is we need to basically get it into the right terms, remove the term abortion being in the construct of abortion care, and stop allowing us to be called anti-abortion people, because as long as that term continues to happen, they control the narrative. And anyone in the movement who wants to accept the term anti-abortion is not pro-life and is literally a plant to destroy the movement, period. And let me continue. Sorry. It's just a sore point for me.
But the suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question, and I would rather die than do that. And hopefully it will not come to that, although who the hell knows in these increasingly strange days. What was it that I said that caused such a fuss? And that fuss is just beginning. And even more importantly and complexly, what exactly was it that I said that resulted in the ban? Here's the tweet in question.
Yeah.
Remember when pride was a sin? And Ellen Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician. And then a link to a story that detailed out the happenings. The response from Twitter, quote, violating our rules against hateful conduct. You may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. By clicking delete, you acknowledge that your tweet violated the Twitter rules. Delete. If you think we've made a mistake, submit an appeal to us. Please note that should you do so, your account will remain locked while we review your appeal. Let's take this apart. First, it is clearly the case that I did not promote violence against or threaten anyone with my missive.
See, and this is where I get into the idea. Again, I'm just going to interrupt shortly because I want to get this whole audio here. Is that we've been told, we're being controlled on the language, and we need to take back our platform.
So that leaves the arguably lesser sin of harass. Let's assume, since I wasn't informed, that that was the crime. And further, harassment on the basis of so-called gender identity, since Twitter did not do me the favor of actually specifying my crime, and there are many possibilities on that front. We unfortunately have to guess at why this has occurred, and that's actually a big problem in and of itself, and also indicative of the utter carelessness of the Twitter organization with regard to the propriety of its own censorial actions.
And this is the reason why they're controlling
know exactly
language.
What I did wrong,
and they won't
if I am
tell
required to acknowledge that my tweet violated the Twitter rules.
Yes.
What rules, you sons of... Exactly.
Yes.
Precisely. Because such things matter when the accusations start flying.
And
so
we're
what
always
did I
in
say
defense.
that might constitute harassment?
And we're always
of
in
many
defense.
things, hypothetically. Let's begin with Remember when pride was a sin? Although that is merely a factual statement, because under the old rules applicable even a decade ago, pride was a sin and had been recognized as perhaps the cardinal sin for thousands of years previously. It still might be regarded as unacceptable to the woke authoritarian moralists who now insist, for example, that we celebrate Pride Month, not hour or day or week, but month, and who have literally called it Pride Month instead of LGBT plus month or whatever else alphabet acronym which is currently insisted upon as the only acceptable enlightened terminology.
And we should be cautious too, because American pride, black pride, white pride, it's all
classically
the same.
regarded as a
It's
sin.
all
I don't
wrong.
see that sexual orientation or sexual desire of any sort is something to celebrate or to take pride in. And so what I said was merely a fact. Now, it's possible that I hurt someone's feelings because I pointed out that pride goes before, for example, a fall, but I don't care about that, would do it again. And also consider it my duty to warn those who are about to fall into a pit that the path they are on leads suddenly downhill. But that was probably not the reason that I was banned from Twitter, although, as I said, I am in the position of having to guess. Next phrase to interrogate.
Here it is.
And Ellen Page.
And here it is. I think this is
Now,
the part
why did
where
I
it
stop
was.
there? Because in all likelihood, it was this seemingly innocuous phrase, including the name of a well-known actress, there I'm in trouble again, that likely resulted in my ban. I committed the fatal crime of what has come to be known in the appalling sensorial terminology of the insane
This is so
activists
sad.
as dead naming, which is the act of referring to someone who has transitioned, another hated piece of jargon and slogan, by the name and by the inference, the gender, really the sex, that everyone knew them by previously, and in the case of Ellen/Elliot, that millions of people recognized and knew. So I should have either called him, her, they, Elliot, instead of Ellen, although as we will discover, that would have made it impossible for me to say what I wanted to and need to say in the remaining phrases. Not that such a problem would bother those who are objecting to my speech in the first place. The next phrase is, just had her breasts removed.
And this is
This
the part.
bit suffers from a very similar problem. I employed the forbidden pronoun her when Elliot, Ellen, is now to be regarded as a he or else. But there's a conundrum here, to say the least, and
Controlling
not just
speech.
for me, although I have been banned because of it. Was Elliot/Ellen a she or a he, or Ellen or Elliot, when she or he or they, that's Elliot or Ellen, by the way, had his or her or their breasts removed? If he or she was a he, then why was it necessary to have the mastectomy? And
But
how
see-
could those I am writing to make sense of what I was saying if it was his breasts that were removed? Were those male breasts or female breasts that were removed? If they were male breasts, then why were they removed?
Yes,
If they
and-
were female breasts and had therefore become objectionable to the degree that surgery generally reserved for cancer treatment was required, was morally obligatory, then wasn't Elliot still Ellen and he still she?
And you see how difficult it is to get this
How
figured
could I
out?
possibly have written that sentence in any sensible manner whatsoever, while simultaneously making my point understandably and not breaking Twitter rules against so-called hateful conduct? And Elliot Page just had his breasts removed? Was he Elliot then? When exactly? Exactly. He was definitely Ellen at some point in the past, or so indicate all his, her, them, their film credits. Will all those have to be reshot since they employed the hated dead name? That doesn't exist, by the way, that dead name category, except in the sensorial and addled minds of a tiny fraction of insanely narcissistic and increasingly dangerous trans activists. When precisely was it incumbent on me to switch my terminology in regard to Elliot/Ellen.
Did you hear that?
So that I was not engaging in hateful conduct.
This is the key here.
And how can I describe the fact that someone who was once a woman, and really still is, had her breasts cut off because she, he, they, their, them had fallen prey to a viciously harmful fad without using the appropriate sex-linked pronoun and the real name of the real person to whom this was really done with his, her, their voluntary but unfortunate acquiescence. And so it was impossible to communicate what had happened to my audience without apparently running afoul of the impossible and absurd rules that now hypothetically govern morality itself in the days of the degenerated postmodern and Marxist ethos that we must still, no matter how impossible it is, abide by or else.
The postmodern
and you might
Marxist
object, Ellen/Elliot is an adult, 30-something, and fully capable of making up his...
This is where we need to get control of the language again. Because this postmodern neo-Marxist nonsense is what's keeping us from having good discussion and being off of frequency.
See fit. And fair enough, to some degree. But I don't believe it is either merely picayune or inappropriate to point out that Ellen/Elliot, who is quite a good actor/actress, is also a ritual model for emulation, being a star with all the privileges and, let us point out, the responsibilities that go along with that. So by acquiescing to this surgery and by publicizing it, and by insisting upon the sanctity and the moral virtue of his, her, their new, expensive, dangerous, and medically enhanced identity, and by participating in the whole identity charade, Ellen/Elliot has undoubtedly, with his, her, their so-called courage, and remember, the White House itself has tweeted out every indication of believing in the courage of those who transition. Enticed many a poor, confused adolescent, girl most likely, to blame her emergent pubescent self-consciousness, confusion, and discomfort on being born in the wrong body and believing that the...
This is what he's saying right now is really key, because he's talking about the whole idea is that what Ellen Page is doing, or Elliot, or whoever you want to call the individual, they're encouraging other kids who are confused and lost to do the same thing. And there should be some culpability, because if Donald Trump is going to be basically prosecuted for leading the insurrection and inciting the insurrection of January 6th, then Page needs to have some culpability here as well.
To the final phrase, criminal physician. I must say that I've had some post-coital, so to speak, regrets about that phrase. It is clearly the case that the surgical operation performed by the butchers who butchered Elliot/Ellen was legal. So, was it criminal or not? Were the operations undertaken by the fascist physicians who carried out the Nazi medical experiments legal? Yes, under the laws of the time. But were they criminal? I'll leave that question up to you to answer. And further, perhaps it might be objected, what about the damage done by hypothetically leaving those confused about their identity to dwell in their confusion? Aren't we morally obliged to intervene? And I would say, no.
Yes.
Why?
Get that?
Well, first, do no harm, as the Hippocratic Oath, remember that, insists. And second,
take care, Linda.
It has been a matter of historical consensus that sins of omission are less egregious than sins of commission. Thus, leaving someone with gender dysphoria, no matter how warranted, and perhaps it is in a very tiny minority of truly unfortunate cases, to suffer the consequences of the theoretical mismatch between soul and body is less of a risk ethically, personally, socially, and philosophically than the extremely active intervention that constitutes so-called gender-confirming, another hated phrase, surgery. I might also point out that the trans surgery enterprise is now a $300 million per annum growth industry. Rate of projected expansion, 15% per year. Projected increase by 2027 to $750 million.
$750 million for trans
An expanding
surgeries.
enterprise. in a time of global uncertainty. Time to invest, both in the requisite surgical skills and perhaps in any industry associated with this vicious and unconscionable fad, primarily entangling, as such things so often do, the youthful and female. Isn't that a concern, intersectionalists?
Yeah.
Not when push comes to shove,
And
or
here's the key.
ideology to scalpel. Is that not a true moral hazard? And I'm not taking down that tweet or acknowledging that my tweet violated the Twitter rules. Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who. Twitter's a rat hole in the final analysis, and I have probably contributed to that while trying to use, understand, and master that horrible, toxic platform. No doubt I owe some apologies for that, and I'm trying to learn, but it's a relief in some real sense to be banned, and I regard it under the present conditions as a badge of honor.
See, we have to have the control back. And them controlling Twitter is not killing us. It's freeing us up for more important things. I'm your host, Watson Pretty from Battle4Freedom. Take care, and God bless.